Yeah, the topic is we've got to present a product that we've been working on, and it's called Data Sets on the Graph. In particular, we're going to also work with Snowflake. So there's a sort of Snowflake integration. So yeah, that's what we're going to go over today. So this is just the agenda. We're going to kind of talk about what the problem we're trying to solve, how we're solving it, how users are consuming data sets, a little bit about the MVP architecture, sort of the data pipeline, how we got to integrate with gateways, and then we're going to do a demo on Snowflake and talk about our future plans. So what we are trying to solve, blockchain data generates a lot of data. So it's a lot of data to manage. So that's one of the problems is the volume, the size of these blockchains are extremely big. The extraction is actually quite complex, especially if you're trying to get detailed interaction from the RPC nodes. If you're doing simple transaction logs, maybe that's kind of quite easy. But if you're trying to get more rich data from RPC nodes, you need custom instrumentation. And also the tools. The tools are not really built for extraction. So analysts are familiar with more traditional tools like in the SQL space. And also it comes to scalability. There's a lot of blockchains out there. And the more blockchains you add, it becomes a sort of operational burden. And it also is very difficult to download large volumes of data. So you would like to have a data store and only query the data that you need. So this is much difficult once you start hosting lots of data at scale. How we are solving it is we are using two technologies called Firehose and Substreams, which will be services on the graph. We initially defined the block schemas. So EVM that supports, all the EVM-based chains, Solana, Bitcoin. Once we have defined a schema that we will use to export into Parquet files, those are kind of mini databases, but as a flat file, we host it on AWS S3, or it could be also your own S3 bucket. We handle also authentication, usage, all the billing for the S3 usage. There's also a concept called the request or pay that Amazon has, or we can also have billing on our own side as well. Having only data on an S3 bucket is if you want to access that raw data, but normally users would want to connect to a hosted managed database. So we also, additionally on top of the S3 bucket, we also host that data onto Snowflake Marketplace as a listing, and anybody can access also the data available on Snowflake or the raw data on S3. And then how would you consume that data? So again, you can either connect directly to the S3 bucket, load that data into your database using two different techniques, external table, or just copy the data directly with copy into. This supports, lots of different databases, but this is a small list, but Snowflake, AWS Athena, ClickHouse, Google BigQuery, they all support those techniques. You could either just read those files directly and not even load it into your database and read each file individually using programming languages. There's Polars and Pandas. Those are the top two Python libraries that you can use, and also Rust libraries. Because we manage to load the data onto Snowflake, you can perform SQL queries directly on the managed databases using Snowflake. So a little bit about the architecture, the sort of data pipeline. Again, we talked about these raw blocks that are hosted by Firehose. So if ever we host a blockchain for data sets, we need to have Firehose instrumentation. That allows us to have a standard block type that we pipe through substreams, define the table schema, and that would be defining the blocks, the transaction, traces, logs, everything that we want to extract as a table into a Parquet file. Once the data is extracted from substreams, we can host it on S3 as a Parquet file. And then once that is hosted, we can either pipe that directly to all the different data consumers. Those are usually cloud databases, pick your SQL compute engine, or just read it directly using your Python libraries. And then there's two different gateway approaches that we can deal with this. Either we ask for billing directly to the S3 bucket. So this would be the concept of a request payer. You would be billing for how many bytes you read from the S3 storage. Or the marketplace listing for Snowflake, you would request listing access to the data sets that are already managed. You don't have to copy over any data. You can start performing SQL queries directly on that. So there's two different types of gateways. Now, of course, the Snowflake marketplace depends on the S3 to funnel new data sources. So that's the first one is a critical piece, is having the S3 bucket. And then after, we expose that data to Snowflake as well. All right, I think we're going to dive into demo. So here in Snowflake, they've got this concept of a marketplace. It's quite interesting. If you just search, let's say, Ethereum, there's actually many different providers, some that you will know, Dune, for example. There's a few providers that provide, let's call it Ethereum blockchain data, or also Base and all sorts of different blockchains. We have one right now with a 30-day trial. So you can download you can kind of get the listing, you can try out, you can do queries around it. It's free to try. After 30 days, there's a sort of a data access listing fee. This will include blocks, transaction traces, logs, storage changes, and code changes. And we'll keep adding more tables as we build out more. You can also just preview the data, which is quite handy. You can see the structure. So let's say we're looking at the blocks, number, hashes. Let's go look at, let's say, logs. So here you've got your transaction hash. Let's go see your contract address, your topic 0, topic 1, topic 2 and 3. And yeah, and so you have a preview directly. You can also see the schema of the columns. So this is a date, this is a number, this is a timestamp. So if you want to get familiar with the data set, you can kind of preview the data beforehand. Snowflake hosts on multiple regions. So right now we have actually 42 regions that you can download. The reason for multiple cloud regions is that the data is replicated on multiple regions. That way, if your data is in a specific region, this data will be replicated to your region to have quick access. So here again, we have the data dictionaries. You can preview all the different tables. And we also provide some examples that we'll kind of go through. So we've got some SQL queries that you can do, which is, let's say you want to look up ERC20 token transfers, active users, the top contracts. So we'll go dive into those demos. I'll share another tab. So here in Snowflake, you have this concept of notebooks. So these are Python notebooks. You can create one. You can either connect it to a GitHub repo. Here, I'm just setting up the environment, like the Python environment. And for daily active users, so I want to, let's say, compute daily active users using transactions and the from field. So here is a SQL statement. I'm going to take the block date, and I'm going to count how many distinct users are from the transaction. And we're going to do a date range, and we only want to search by, let's say, all of 2023, and we're going to group by and order by. So here it's going to extract and get that data, organize it by date, and we're going to now have a sum of all the unique from of the transactions, which will count as the daily active users. So here we've got 2023, January 1st. So we've got about a 200,000, 300,000. Now these are just a tabular data, but you can also preview it as a chart. So here we've now created another chart using Pandas, and now we've got the same visuals as the tabular data, but as a chart. Here we've got this big spike here in September 13th. We've got about a million users. So something really happened on September 13th, 2023. I'd have to go look it up, but sounds like an important date for Ethereum. Other things that you can also look is, let's say, you can go scan through all the logs and get the top contracts. So say, count me all of the contract addresses from the logs after 2024. So everything that has to do with after 2024, and we're going to limit it by the top 50 contracts. So here we have this contract has 142 million interactions, 49 million, 26 million. So then what you can do is you can kind of dive into those contracts to see what are they. Most of them are token contracts or a swap contract, something that goes through a lot of transactions. I think this one is probably the Tether contract, but I have to confirm that. And finally, we have, let's say, doing an ERC20 token transfer. and summed up by the daily aggregation. So what we're trying to do is we want to see from the traces, only find me the signatures that match transfer and the transfer from, and count the events per day. So now we're just doing a substring from the input of the traces, and we're matching the signatures of the transfer and transfer from, grouping by date. Now we're getting this repeatable pattern of organized data per date, and then we have a count, and we can visualize that with the same chart. And now we have about 1 million or so ERC20 tokens per day on Ethereum what is this? The 2024. So about 1 million transfers per day. What's really nice is if you have multiple blockchains, you can kind of do this analysis on multiple different EVM chains and then get different results. So it's pretty exciting to be able to do big data analysis on these blockchains. You can have different variety of blockchains. You can do all sorts of things. I mean, the sky's the limit with the type of queries you can do, analysis, macro analysis, micro analysis that you can do. And what are our future plans? So right now, what we did at the demo is we did a demo for Ethereum. So we have all of Ethereum hosted on Snowflake and on our S3 bucket. What we're trying to do currently and actively is add additional EVM chains. So we're going to be adding Base, Arbitrum, BSC, Polygon, support for beacon chains as well. So that way we can do validation on the data, do validation, and host also blobs. We can also support non-EVM chains such as Solana and Bitcoin. And currently right now, our refresh rate is about 24 hours. If we can possibly reduce that time frame, so you have a bit more of a real-time analytics, but still chunks, maybe 10 minutes or per hour.